Hi everyone, this is Rex Dungan. I am running for Iron County Assessor, and I am here to try and answer the questions that you sent over from the Chamber of Commerce. The first thing I did when I got these is I actually went through them and I sat down and I answered all of them by writing out my answers. So I have a lot of notes here, and I hope that I can try and get through without having to look at my little cheat sheet, but I may have to look away a couple of times to try and remind myself of some of the things that I was thinking of when I wrote down my answers. Um, just a brief background on myself. I currently am a deputy assessor with the Iron County Assessor's Office, and I've been appraising for 35 years. I've been at the business for a long time. Um, Looking at the questions here, the first question that you guys sent over regarding the tangible personal property tax. Businesses struggle, especially new businesses as it is, and have to pay the initial tax on equipment, but they must pay tax on that same equipment. And how can we address this and change it so businesses have better chance of survival? I've been a business owner for a lot of years and have had the same I've had the same challenge. I've received notices from the county in times that I have not completed them. I've had them come knocking at the door. I've had them peeping in my windows to look and see what equipment was there, to verify that they still had the same stuff on their list, to see if there's anything new. So I'm familiar with it. I know what it's like, and I've been on that side of the fence. And one of the things that we have to understand is that the assessor's office doesn't have control over the mandate for taxing personal property or business property. That's something that comes down from the state. I'm an advocate for business owners that want to argue that sometimes this is an excess tax. I get it. The county also has, a budget, and somehow they've managed to, I wouldn't say they've managed. It is part of the budget because it's a taxation that's been mandated by the state. And they include those revenues in their budget, and to have them removed, of course, would affect the budget for the county-wide. So, being the assessor, I understand our responsibility, our role for, completing those valuations on those personal properties and business property equipment. Um, one of the things that is, I guess, good news, it's a small consolation at least, is that at least the state did change the threshold to 15,000. And if you're out there and your personal property valuation is less than 15,000, you're looking at a zero tax. So through recent legislation, I know they were trying to eliminate it completely. I think this was a piece of the compromise. Although as an assessor, I'm responsible to uphold the law and continue to tax these properties. But personally, if I had a business, I would agree with anyone that would push something towards the state to say that this is one of those things that we might want to look at reducing to a minimal or even eliminating. I get it. I agree with it. And I know that that's going to rub the wrong way with a lot of people. There are a lot of folks out there who are going to disagree with me. But having been a business owner, I completely understand it. One of the options that I exercised to help reduce my payout of cash so that I could hold cash is I leased a lot of equipment. And a lot of times when I leased that equipment, I would go out and find companies that would lease me equipment that included tax in that payment, so that when I paid the lease fee, it included the tax that would then go to the county, and I wouldn't pay an additional tax for my equipment. And of course, it was always deductible for me. The lease payments, which included the tax, was something that I used to deduct from my income. A second question is, what do you think the county government's role should be in dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, and what level of responsibility does the county government have to do to the business owners in this situation? The county government's role in dealing with COVID-19 should be limited to the health authority over the county and its constituency and the governmental bodies. The only executable authority the county should exact on the population is simply one that is consistent with what the county health agrees is in everyone's best interest, And that being said, regardless of how severe the situation is, or might be, or could be, or how agreed we all are on what role or implementation the health department or the government implements, the county should consider the burden that is or will be placed on business owners. I disagree that anyone should have to pay taxes when their business is suffering as a result of a health scare, especially when the government mandates it. When someone from the government comes in and tells me that I have to close my doors and I can no longer serve the public openly, they should also include a paragraph in there that stipulates my not having to pay taxes either. With that, although it directly affects the county budget, what's being more negatively affected is the business owner's livelihood, and there should be a consideration for that. So, to surmise that, I think the county government's role with COVID-19 should be left to the county health authority. The county should attempt to augment the business's opportunity to make a living and consider what their losses may be and the effects on the survivability are within those boundaries, and make available options for the owners to continue to stay alive, with their business with limited or to no taxing burden, and eliminate taxes for businesses the county is insisting shut their doors to the public. Because if they come out and tell you, hey, you can't, you can't stay open, you can't let people come in, you can't serve them. Maybe if you're a restaurant, you can get to-go orders, but if you're another business and you can't let people in, I agree. I don't understand why we'd want to have to pay taxes for that. As the assessor, again, I'm going to follow the rule of law that's mandated by the state, but I absolutely understand as a business owner what we're up against when it comes to that predicament. Number 3, as a candidate, what are your top 3 goals you hope to achieve in this position? I've been sending emails and mailers, and I've spoken in a few venues. That there are 3 things that I have been touting as my objectives as the assessor, and the first is going to be an educational outreach to property owners of the county. People typically don't understand the taxing administration and how it functions. They don't understand the benefits sometimes that are available to them, and I think that we as an assessor's office have a responsibility to educate people out there so that they know better what benefits they have, how the taxing administration works, how their properties are being taxed, and how they can reduce those taxes if there are eligible programs that they might fit into. And my second goal, I believe that the state has a mandate also that when we do our mass appraisals, we have these large coverage areas, which are called LEAs, meaning land economic areas. And these large LEAs encompass hundreds and hundreds and sometimes thousands of properties. And when we do valuations, we establish a base through certain sales ratio studies that come off of what have sold within those LEAs. And if those sales have established a high percentage of growth over last year's values for the particular properties that sold, we implement those percentages of change across the board throughout the entire LEA. And I think that we could do a better job, and I'm trying to differentiate with the state how we segment better those sub areas within the overall LEA so that they're not all hit per se by the same percentages of growth as a given market that maybe did better than others. And so that's one of the things I do want to work on, and we'll see changes to. And then the third thing is going to be an advocacy. This is a personal advocacy. It's nothing that the assessor's office can really influence directly through its operation, but I think that an assessor in the Iron County Assessor's Office can have a voice, and that's going to be slow growth. I see that we're developing rapidly. Our house population is growing tremendously. Our business, I would say, out west of town with our warehouse and industrial buildings are growing rapidly, and we have a lot of development going on. But I think that we also need to step back and establish a better understanding of how the communities throughout Iron County can handle the infrastructure development to keep pace with that growth. I think we need to be careful of the excessive inventory that can come onto the market, because when things slow down, if the economy turns a little bit south or if the rates go up, If the buyer pool starts to shrink, all of a sudden we have this excess inventory and we start to see property values decrease and diminish. And even worse, and I've seen communities that this has happened to, if the economy turns to a point that it's recessive, we can find ourselves with a great deal of empty properties and a lot of people who can't even just sell their home for basic values that they had years before. And then there's also a water potential. We have to be careful too what's available to us as a gross potential. Despite good years producing more waters over some years that produce less water, we also have to take a look at what the full capacity might be if we were to build out to our full water potential. And we want to be slow getting to that point and make sure that we understand where that point is, that we don't surpass it. And that's just another piece of what I think that I would like to get involved with and help create a voice for as the assessor for Iron County. Number 4, how important is leadership experience in running for office, and why do you feel this way? Leadership in the assessor's office has to be established in order to set boundaries and expectations for every person's area of responsibility in the office. Without it, the overall functions of the office won't be accomplished. And with that, running for the office isn't plausible among the staff, and a candidate really won't have the support necessary, within the office, let alone from those on the outside looking in. Aside from the support of the office, having been in a position of leadership helps a candidate remain diverse in their ability to deal with all levels of the job, which may be from dealing with staff, the public, commissioners, and the state. And being intimidated by any level doesn't serve the office and its overall responsibility. A leader isn't afraid to make decisions independently of having someone telling them which way they need to turn. And in order to be a leader, a person needs to be prepared to accept responsibility even when the choice isn't the correct or best, and remain unbrandished by it. And although a good leader is also a good listener, that person has to be able to not be afraid to stand alone when his choices aren't popular. So again, in summary, a leader has to establish those boundaries. You have to entice support from all concerned, both inside and outside the circle of influence. Have a strong range of comprehensive understanding for those at all levels of communication, and not be afraid to stand alone in order to do what is right and best for everyone concerned. Your 5th question was, how will your prior work experience benefit the county? My experience has the range and depth that is, in my opinion, required to work in that office and have it function appropriately. And my experience bodes well to that. I've worked in banking management. I've privately owned business. I've been the head of real estate sales teams, and I've had my own sales company as a real estate agent and broker. I've been a due diligence director with a large investment firm. I've worked in forensics for Fannie Mae, and I have 35 years as an appraiser and 25 years as a realtor and broker. Also, I've worked, as I mentioned, due diligence director with an investment firm, and I was a chief appraiser with a large bank. We did approximately $1.4 billion in fundings in the last year that I was there. I had 167 appraisers across the panel, and I currently am the deputy assessor for Iron County, and I hold a division of real estate certified appraiser license and the Utah State Tax Commission designation as an ad valorem appraiser general, which is the highest designation that they offer. I bring all this to the table to serve an understanding of valuations for the county-wide, and I have experience in all matters that are of property valuation, including mass appraisal, which is a lot different than just doing standard 1 or 2 appraisals. If someone comes to your home to give you a value because you're refinancing or buying a home, doing mass appraisals is a lot different, and it takes a lot of different type of technique. So, again, in summary, I have 35 years as an appraiser, 25 as a broker. I've been head of an appraisal review department with a large S&L back in the day, forensics analyst with Fannie Mae, due diligence director with an investment firm, a chief appraiser with Pacific Bank, and I'm currently the deputy assessor in Iron County. And then you had a final question here. It just says, what strengths can you? And I'm assuming that the finish to that question were, what strengths can you bring to the office? and that's my assumption is what that question was meant to be at the end. You know, my strengths encompass the work history and experience credentials and the educational previously described, in these prior questions. As I mentioned, I've managed teams of salespeople. I've managed my own business, both in real estate and as an appraiser. I've been the head of banking departments, the 167 panel of appraisers throughout 4 states in the western United States. And my career has been built around preparing to be the best and most capable appraiser possible for Iron County. And so I believe I bring to the table, a history of experience that fits all facets of the office, that would allow me to be able to communicate with people at the state, where I already have relationships in the State Tax Commission, and all the way down to the constituency throughout the county. So, I always close my messages to, as the delegates, when I've been trying to reach out and campaign to them, and I've been sending emails and flyers and packages to them. I close with a final. I suppose it's a slogan, but it's a thought. I ask for their vote, not just because I want the job. I'm asking for their vote because this is my job. And I hope that you'll consider my background, my history, my work ethic, and ability to perform a good job for you here at Iron County as the assessor. Thank you. I'm Rex Duncan.